Thank you.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me. The topic of my presentation is privacy by design and its application. I will present the Canadian approach, but I will focus more on the European approach. I will be happy to answer your emerging questions after the presentation, and let's see what is the perspective, what is my background. I'm Barnabas Szekely. I'm working as a data privacy consultant since 2016. I'm the founder of Privacy Pro and co-founder of Cluj Privacy Hub. Since 2016, I have been leading complex GDPR compliance programs in a wide range of industries, including software development, e-commerce, marketing, and healthcare. My areas of expertise are the following ones: data privacy consulting, GDPR compliance, organizational awareness trainings, and DPO services. I possess privacy engineering certification from ISACA, certified information privacy professional from IAPP, and OneTrust privacy professional certificate. My background is mostly legal. I also have a master in European private law, and now I'm completing a master at the UPM, the Polytechnic University of Madrid, in the domain of artificial intelligence. Let's see why are we talking about privacy by design and what is it? The concept of privacy by design was developed by Anne Cavoukian in the 90s. She was the former information privacy referred to by many data protection experts. The privacy by design framework, incorporating the 7 foundational principles, were published in 2009. We will speak about this later. And GDPR introduced not privacy by design term, but using data protection by design and by default. And this was the first time it was a legal requirement, so it was legal binding. You have to, if GDPR applies to you, you have to also comply with the data protection by design and by default principles. GDPR, you have to comply with GDPR if you're having an establishment in the EU or if you are offering goods or services in the European Union. One of the biggest lessons I have learned during our GDPR compliance projects was that organizations cannot comply with the GDPR if their ICT systems development lagged of the implementation of data privacy principles. In order to comply with data privacy regulations, you have to embed privacy by design in the software development lifecycle, and you can be GDPR compliant if the used ICT systems are not designed for privacy. Also, the ICO privacy by design, privacy by default standard is the first which contains this term. And we have a standard privacy by design for consumer goods and services, which is under development, and it will be published next year. Will become a global gold standard. You can see all the countries where the national data privacy regulation incorporates the privacy by design term or requirement, including Canada, Brasilia, India, Europe, also Singapore and South Korea. So let's see the 7 foundational principles. Privacy should be proactive and not reactive. This means that we should assess, identify, manage, and prevent any data protection risk before data breaches occur. What means privacy as a default setting? It means that individuals should not have to take actions for their personal data to be protected, and measures to safeguard personal data should be automatically provided as a default setting. So in general, you can say that it's necessary to build privacy into the design, operation, and management of a given system, a business process, and also software design. Privacy embedded into design means that data privacy measures must be integrated into processes and features of the systems. End-to-end security, you know about this more than I. This means that security measures must be considered into the complete life cycle of software development life cycle. Transparency, this means that we have to take an active role in informing individuals on what personal data is collected and for what is used. And also we should inform the data subjects if we are disclosing their data to third parties. And it should be user-centric to default settings while giving individuals the option to customize settings with informative notices. And these notices should be written in plain language, very simple, not technical one. And let's see how GDPR require data protection by design by default. This is a legal requirement, so it's a must. GDPR says that in order to comply with the data protection by design requirement, you should implement technical and organizational measures which are designed to implement data protection principles and to integrate the necessary safeguards into the processing in order to meet GDPR requirements. Data protection by default means that you should implement this technical and organizational measure in order to ensure that by default only personal data which are necessary for each specific scope are processed. And it's very hard to achieve this because you should apply these principles before and during the data processing. And in order to determine which technical and organizational measures will be applied, you should take into account the state of art, the cost of implementation, purposes, context, and also risk of processing. And let's see which data protection principles we should comply with. There are 7 principles. 6 of them was introduced in the early 80s, and GDPR completed them with the accountability principle. We can talk about lawfulness, fairness, and transparency. This means that the company who is processing the data must identify a valid legal basis for the processing of personal data. For example, if a fitness app using health data for a targeted advertisement purpose, this could not be done without the user consent. So in order to process data, you should have a legal basis for each purpose. Fairness is an overarching principle which requires that personal data should not processed in a way that is unjustifiably or unlawfully discriminatory or misleading. Transparency means that we also met this principle in the privacy by design foundational principles. This means that we should inform the data subject very clear what are we doing with its data. Purpose limitation means that the controller must collect data for specified, explicit, and legitimate purposes and no further process the data in a manner that is incompatible with the purposes for which they were collected. For example, using an address provided for delivery of a product, we can't use this address for marketing purposes. Because it would not be compatible with the first purpose. Data minimization. This means that only personal data that is adequate, relevant, and limited to what is necessary for the purpose should be processed. For example, if we are doing a newsletter subscription form, then we are not allowed to ask a mobile number because this is not needed for in order to provide newsletters. Accuracy, this means that personal data should be accurate and kept up to date. If an insurance company increases the fee of the subscription based on inaccurate data or old data, that means that the company can get a GDPR fine. Storage limitation. This means that controller must ensure that personal data is kept in a form which permits identification of data subjects for no longer than it's necessary. After we completed the data processing purposes, we should delete the data or anonymize it. But the anonymization is very important in order to we could not be able to re-identify the data subjects from the anonymized database. And also integrity and confidentiality. This means data security. And let's see which steps should we follow in order to implement the data protection by design and by default principles in software development. First of all, it is recommended to have data privacy professional in our team. There are a lot of legal requirements. It's very hard to identify the ones with whom we have to comply with. And also the data protection case law in Europe, it's very complex. As a second step, we should conduct a data protection impact assessment in order to assess the types of personal data and data processing activities of the planned ICT system. We also should identify legal basis for the data processing purposes, and also map the whole data processing lifecycle from the collection of the data until the deletion of data. We also should focus on data minimization. We already talked about this, and it's very important to inform data subjects and do not use dark patterns or other misleading solutions. If the consent is the appropriate legal base, we should gain a valid consent. It's very important that it should be freely given, specific, informed, and unambiguous consent. And if we have consent, we should also have technical measures to facilitate withdrawal of consent. And yes, also in the age of big data, it's very important to have ethical and fair algorithms. We should assess processing wider impact on individuals' rights and also mitigate uncovered biases and ensure fairness in the data processing. Let's see some data protection by design best practices, mostly focusing on the data security. We know that all the systems are different. When we are developing different ICT systems, we should apply a different approach. And also it's very important to focus on data security. How can we achieve this? It's very important to secure the development environment, make an informed choice of architecture, use privacy patterns and privacy enhancing technologies. If you are using libraries or third-party code, we should understand how it's working and using them only if they are proof. We should also set up version control for our system. Secure our websites is use encryption. Also have user management, and it's also very important to test our applications. I only summarized the advantages of privacy by design or data privacy by design, but it's also very important that these advantages. But in the Q&A session, I will be happy to receive your feedback about the disadvantages. So, what are the advantages? If the ICT system it's a GDPR compliant system, then uh, it has a higher added value for the company which is using this system. The GDPR compliance is operationalized and automated, so the GDPR compliance involves lower GDPR compliance costs and risk. Also, Gartner says that if a company communicates that it is GDPR compliant, then the customer trust grows, and also is a competitive advantage on the market because there are very few softwares which are GDPR compliant. Thank you for your attention, and I would be happy to answer your questions.
Yeah, let's see if there are any questions on the chat. Let me see. Yeah, I can't see any questions for now, but if there's someone who want to ask a question. Not. Thank you for your time. I don't know if anyone has any questions for now.
Until that, maybe I should summarize the presentation.
Sure.
So, successful implementation of both privacy by design and privacy by default requires employees, especially those involved in the development of new products and services. And very important is employees who have enough basic knowledge on privacy. Also, we should have clear policies, guidelines, and work instructions related to data protection. And also involved a privacy specialist in the software development. Incorporation of privacy by design in the development process is the only way to apply privacy successfully. For organizations, these concepts provide an opportunity to increase efficiency and gain data subjects' trust. And if I can see any questions. Maybe I should just say that thank you for your time, and I wish you a smooth journey on the road of privacy by design.